Well, hello everyone. This is Steven Torres, and I'm here with.
Sean O'Keefe.
All right, and I want to welcome everyone to our very first live stream. This is going to be a weekly live stream here at Career Launch. I'm the faculty director of Career Launch. I just joined up with my friend here, Sean, and we are very, very excited. Of course, Sean is the founder, and he has a new book coming out that is going to really help a lot of students. And so we're going to start doing this weekly live stream to help all of you out there on that journey as you find, the internships and jobs that you want. So in today's first live stream, I thought it might be really helpful to talk about a few things. And I think the first thing, Sean, we should share with the audience is, how did you come up with Career Launch? Could you give everyone who's not familiar with what you do on campus there at Santa Clara, how you came up with Career Launch?
Yeah, you bet. And glad to be here. I didn't think I would be doing a live stream ever. I am an introvert, Stephen, as you know, but maybe others don't. I've learned to be extroverted over the last 20 years, but I'm an introvert at my core. Before I had kids, Thanksgiving, just to give you an example, on Thanksgiving, I would sit on the couch with one cousin and watch sports all day. I didn't go around to family members like my sister and talk to every single family member and be extroverted. And so this is a kind of a scary thing for me. Obviously, I've been teaching for 10 plus years, but I never thought I'd be doing live stream. But glad to be here. The origination of the Career Launch method actually was 20 years ago. Actually, when I was an undergrad student, my life was changed because of a professor who taught me how to zig when others zag, and we can get into that maybe a little later. But long story short, I was a communication major. I barely had a 3.0, and I didn't have any connections from family or friends or faculty to the jobs I wanted in a really competitive industry. So the chances of I knew I didn't know a lot, but I knew that getting an internship would greatly enhance my chances of getting a job in the industry I wanted after graduation. So I was smart enough to figure that out, but I knew that just applying online wasn't going to work for me, given my GPA and my major and not having any connections. And so because of this interaction that I had with this professor and going to the office hours, I landed 3 internships, 2 of which were in the hidden job market, and we call the hidden job market. Well, here's a crazy statistic. In higher education, faculty members, higher ed leaders, we know this, and we've been hearing this for 20, 30 years. Only 20% of jobs and internships are advertised and posted online. 80% of internships and jobs are in the hidden job market. Wow. And I didn't know that statistic back, and I don't think my professor even said it, but I got the point that an internship is really valuable to getting a job in the industry or organization that you're really pursuing after graduation. And so I threw a lot of spaghetti against the wall and landed 3 internships, and those 3 internships landed to a full-time job after I graduated. And I've just been so grateful for that experience. As I went throughout my 20s, I realized that a lot of my classmates, I guess not classmates, coworkers and clients who I talked to, they didn't have a similar experience. And I felt like I was really lucky. And so, and actually, Stephen and I met during my college years. Stephen was one of my managers in my part-time job that I had. And I would, in addition to getting coaching from my professor, I went to these weekly meetings that Stephen, you were leading, and I loved the professional development. You always gave a quote every week that you would hand out, like a hard copy. I'd take those home, or I'd write them down on a Post-it. Anyways, I took this coaching, and it led to internships, led to a job, and I always felt like I wanted to pay that forward. I went back to school to get my MBA at the age of 25 to 28, and I was having a conversation with the dean of the business school about I'd really like to pay this forward. I feel like I was given this gift as an undergrad, and I'd like to pay it forward. Next thing you know, I'm being asked to teach as an adjunct. I had a ton of imposter syndrome. If you're not familiar with that term, it means even when you get to a certain place or get admitted, you still feel like you're not good enough. So I had that when I went to business school. I felt like even though I got in, I still wasn't good enough to be there. And then when Professor Barry Posner, the dean of the business school at the time, said, "How would you like to teach?" And I'm thinking to myself, I was 27 at the time. I didn't start teaching until I was 29, but I was thinking, wow, I was a 3.0 communication major. I don't know if I'm qualified to teach. Anyways, long story short, I started teaching in January of 2010. 3 weeks into my teaching experience, I had this feeling come over my body, like this is what you're meant to do with your life, is helping to pay forward this methodology of being proactive to build relationships with professionals in the industries that you're interested in. And I started doing that in the classroom, and then for the last 2.5 years with Career Launch. And Stephen, so glad to have you join the team, and glad to be here doing this live stream, which I never thought I would be doing.
Well, that's awesome. And I think for folks out there, as you watch this, the journey that Sean went on with being a student, finding his own internships, right? I mean, this is something you've always heard the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, what if you don't know anyone? Right. And so what Sean put together, and I think one of the things that everybody's going to really love about, eventually the book here when it comes out in May, and going through some of our programs, for those of you that are at the universities where we're already at, where we have programs, you're going to get this stuff, right from that program. For those of you who aren't at those universities, you can actually get, much of that same information through some of the programs that we offer outside of those universities. And you're going to learn to do what Sean basically did. And that's really exciting because there's so many people like you, Sean, right? There's so many people that don't know how do they go about getting the job. And the industry you were getting into was not one that just posts a lot of internships, right? Like when you were a student?
Yeah, I was trying to get into professional sports.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not a place where they just advertise, hey, we need a new internship, because when they do, they'd have 10,000 applicants who'd want to work at some of the places, some of those pro sports teams. So excited to bring all of this information to you on this weekly live stream. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, we'll be here every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. to start sharing some of these tips. You could also catch us on our Career Launch YouTube channel. We'll be having a Twitch stream coming up so we can share all this with you. So make sure you come and join us on that. And if you can't catch us live, be sure to watch the replays and follow us and all that good fun stuff. So Sean, let's talk about some of the things that are happening. So we're going to be doing these live streams to share the tools and tips to help folks. We're also going to be having some webinars. Let's talk a little bit about our first webinar. It's coming up in February, so I'll put that on the stream below. But we have a webinar about how to get a summer internship and how to stand out. So for those of you right now who maybe, you guys, Sean, when did you guys start? When did your quarter start?
January 4th.
Okay, so you guys are already in. We just started this past week at Berkeley. And so if you already have an internship, you're going to get some great information. But for those of you who may not have your first summer internship or this summer internship lined up, join us for that webinar. You'll be able to register at our website, and I'll go over that here a little bit later. But let's talk a little bit about this, about how to get a summer internship, Sean. For students who don't have an internship already lined up, is it too late? Because I'm sure there's some students out there that think, oh my God, it's January. We're only a couple months away. Is it too late?
Definitely not. There are quote unquote recruiting seasons in a lot of industries, and there are industries where, on paper, recruiting season's over, and there's definitely some industries or some companies where maybe it's impossible to still get an internship. But if 80% of the job market is in the hidden job market, and then some of the companies and organizations, nonprofits, government agencies, et cetera, that are still recruiting for summer interns. And I know that there's less internships available now because of the pandemic. And some students have reservations about a virtual internship. And maybe that's something we could talk about in a future Wednesday. Yeah. But it is certainly not too late. I can speak from personal experience. I didn't even start when my junior year of college until January was when I had this wake up call from my professor that I mentioned earlier, and was able to land an internship, for that summer. So yeah, lot of opportunity. I know some students can feel frustrated by just applying online. That could be a frustrating process, but if you really take a holistic approach, then yeah, you're gonna maximize your chances of getting an internship. Not just any internship, but then also, we're really big at Career Launch on being intentional, and being proactive. It's okay to be reactive to opportunities that present themselves in front of you, whether it's on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever your school job board is. That's all great. If you can land an internship through one of those resources, fantastic. We would argue that at the same time that you apply online, you should also be conducting the Career Launch method, because when your resume gets submitted online, most of the time it's going to go through artificial intelligence. It's going to go through this process, and for a lot of jobs or in a lot of internships, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants sometimes, and then a lot of candidates get filtered through the artificial intelligence, and their resume never even gets seen by a human being. But you're 12 times more likely to land a position at the place you're applying to online if you have an internal advocate. So we want to help you build that internal advocate. So even if you come from a family and a background where you don't have any personal connections, the Career Launch method teaches you how to build those from scratch. And Stephen, you mentioned Career Launch as a social enterprise. Our goal as a social enterprise, we want to help colleges and career programs scale the number of students that they can impact on teaching this a step-by-step method that takes students from a place of stress and anxiety about this concept of building and creating relationships with professionals from scratch. Is probably one of the most fearful ideas or concepts for related to career, is building what we call social capital from scratch. So there's a lot of things in life that we don't do well. One of the things I think we figured out is to create a fun and step-by-step process, to take this scary, intimidating, anxiety-inducing concept and make it really action-oriented so that anyone can do it. Introverts, students with imposter syndrome, any major, students at 2-year schools, 4-year schools, and graduate schools, master's, PhD programs. There's this concept of playing the student card, and being a student wherever you are a student, whatever your major is a huge benefit, is a huge asset. So we talk about and teach exactly how to leverage your student status. It looks like you have another question for me, but at Career Launch, our focus is to scale, help others scale, because we really want to impact 1 million students by 2025. And so, the book that we co-authored with the Career Leadership Collective, and we're so glad to have their partnership. The Career Leadership Collective, if you don't know of them, and if anyone in higher ed is watching, they are a tremendous organization at the forefront of innovation, of best practices in career services. They co-authored the book. They helped us write the book, edit the book, and everything that is said to be a high impact practice in career services. They found that the Career Launch method sits at the heart of that. And so we're really grateful to be partnered. And so we realize it might take time for us to build relationships with universities and colleges across the country. And we believe that during a pandemic, we know that it's harder to get an internship or a job. So the book and the workbook were created as something that if your college isn't a partner of Career Launch, is a way for you to get the information soon, so you can start taking action right away.
Yeah, that's really awesome, Sean. You threw out a statistic. Was it 12 times more likely if you have an internal advocate? What was that number?
Yeah, yep, that's it. So if you just apply to a job online, prior to COVID, depending on the industry, your chances of getting the job, if all you did was apply online, was like 1 to 5%, depending on the industry. Now during the pandemic, it's a lot less than that, right?
Yeah.
However, if you can develop an internal advocate, someone that's going to say, "Hey, I vouch for you," and maybe in a future Wednesday, I have a friend who does recruiting at Google, and Google is just one company, but they're a prominent company, and they have a whole software system set up based on do you have an internal advocate, and do you have more than one, and then what is the strength of that advocate? They've gone really in depth to understand the referrals that they're receiving to their organization. Now, small and mid-sized organizations, nonprofits, government agencies, they may not have such an elaborate system like an organization like Google. However, this concept of vouching for someone and recommending someone, even if it's someone that you've recently met, but you make a favorable impression, that contributes to you being 12 times more likely of landing the internship that you applied or job you applied to online.
Well, I mean, I think that's really awesome. And for those of you who are watching, as you watch us on our live streams, or you come to the webinar, or, you get the book here when it comes out in May, you're going to learn the exact steps to do that. Like, how do you actually take someone who who you've met, and have them champion for you inside their organization? So obviously in our today's live stream, we don't have time to get into that. And that's something we get into in depth in the book, and something that we'll get into, possibly in some of the webinars and things where you can actually learn how do you do that? Because if you're more likely to get an internship by having that internal candidate, and you don't know how to do it, or you do it wrong, it doesn't help you. Right. And that's what we want, is we really want to be able to help you. And I think that's a good segue, Sean, to the book. The book is coming out. I'm going to put this on here. The book is actually coming out in May. May 18th, I think, is the drop date. Is that right?
May 18th, yes.
And I already pre-ordered mine, by the way. And for those of you out there, I'm going to do a little plug here. I know, Sean, you may not like this, but for those of you out there, if you want to get a preview of what's to come, go to the website. It's scrolling across the bottom here. It's www.launchyourcareerbook.com/launch. And you can actually, for free, download 2 chapters of the book. So you get a taste and you get a feel of, what's to come. And if you like it, obviously there's pre-orders. You can pre-order it. Again, it's scheduled to come out May 18th. There's some bonuses for those of you if you're really excited and want to get started right away, especially using it for this coming summer's internships that you can do. But Sean, let's talk a little bit about the book. The book, there's 8 basically steps that you go over. How did you come up with these steps? Where did they come from?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, my personal experience, I threw a lot of spaghetti against the wall 20 years ago, but for the last 10 years, and that's what students today care about. They don't care about my experience 20 years ago. But so over the last 10 years, teaching students in my classroom, and then for the last 2.5 years, teaching students throughout the country at other universities and colleges, we've codified, this process of going from nothing and to going to the first 4 steps of the method is being intentional and thoughtful about where you would potentially like to work, whether it's for an internship or a job, and then how to identify people that could be strategically helpful to you, and then how to give yourself the best chance of having an initial conversation with someone. The last 4 chapters, or the last 4 steps, assume that you set up what we call a career conversation, and how do you prepare so that conversation isn't just a one-time transaction, a conversation for 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but how do you truly build a relationship with this professional that you're meeting for the very first time? And so we've tested a lot of stuff for the last 10 years. And we now have the kind of down to a science. It's not 100% foolproof, because we're dealing with real professionals and in real time. This isn't theoretical. This is all practical, pragmatic, action-oriented steps. But the probability of getting to the next step and building relationships, I think we've done it. Again, I have a lot of flaws. I don't think this concept of creating a step-by-step process is one of them. I think we have enough data over the last 10 years to say we're talking about not just 8 steps, but like, depending on how you look at it, 30, 40 micro steps that go with it, that really get into the details of optimizing each step of the process.
Man, that's really awesome. And next week on our live stream, we're not going to announce who it is today, but next week we're actually going to have a guest who's gone through some of those steps. And so those of you out there watching, you're going to get to hear some of the things that really helped them land their internship and go through this process. And you can internalize that, take what you like, adapt it, and then, hopefully if you're at a university that has the career launch programs, you can be part of that cohort. Obviously, if you're not at a university that has the career launch programs, the book is available. We're going to have some webinars, and we're going to have the tools to equip you on your journey as you seek, the job and the internship that you actually want. So Sean, we just have a couple more minutes here before we end. I'm curious, as you look forward, you mentioned getting to that 1 million, impacting 1 million students by 2025. Tell me what does that mean to you? And for those students out there that are watching, how does this really help them get to that internship or get to that job that they really, really want?
Yeah. So the quantitative measurement, the 1 million students by 2025. Bigger than that, this methodology, I wish based on the data that we're seeing, there's a 97% of students who learn the career launch method through whatever modality that it's offered to them, report that it was worth their time and energy that they put into it. Or if it was an organization that made an investment, it was worth the investment too. But 97% of students say it was worth it. 96% of students reported great gains in self-confidence related to career. And so we measure that, I'm not a tenure track faculty. I'm non-tenure track, so I don't have a lot of research I don't have research responsibility. But we measure things on a Likert scale of 1 to 7, and we ask students, after going through the career launch method, how would you rate your gain in self-confidence related to career? If you score a 1, that would be no gain. If you score a 7, that would be great gain. So we're really proud of this. 96% of students either check a 6 or a 7 on that they've experienced great gains in self-confidence. So the most concrete metric is internships and jobs. And a step below that is just meeting with professionals, like setting up career conversations on Zoom or post-pandemic, or depending on where you live, maybe you could do socially distanced in person. So we're looking at that data too. But above and beyond just getting internships and jobs, we're really proud of the fact that students are developing this self-confidence because of the programming.
Yeah, and I think that's so key, right? There's so many. I can't tell you how many times I see it with students on campus where you just know they're outstanding, and if they just understood how outstanding they were, maybe they would go for some of the things that really excite them instead of settling. And so that self-confidence, I think, is a big driver in that. Of course, is very well from our weekly team sales meetings back in the day, that having that little bit of inspiration and motivation to change your image of yourself can be very, very powerful. Well, hey, we're coming up to our time. That just flew by the way.
It did.
I want to invite all of you to join us next week. We're actually going to have a special guest who's going to share some insights going through the actual career launch method so that you get to see and hear directly from someone who's been through this stuff. So I encourage you to tune in next week. Also, go get those 2 free chapters of this book. It's available at you. It's scrolling across the bottom of the page. It's launchyourcareerbook.com/launch. Lots of launches and books and careers. So make sure I get that right. But go there, get those 2 free chapters and start reading it. Start listening to it because that's going to help you as you look towards this summer's internships. There's also, if you want, you can pre-order some of the book there. It's not released officially until May 18th. There's some special bonuses. If you do want to pre-order, you get early access to a career assessment that could be very, very valuable to you. But we're going to talk about all this in our upcoming live streams and, of course, on the webinars. Sean, any last thoughts here before we take off from our first live stream?
I'm really excited to have one of my former students join us next week to share about their experience.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Again, catch us next week, 10:30 a.m., as we share some cool tools and strategies to help you find those amazing internships and jobs that you want. We'll talk to you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.